and welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and you're listening to episode 108 with Christian Sebaldt, ASC, DP of shows like CSI, Lucifer, films like Resident Evil Apocalypse, and the upcoming film Final Destination 6. Enjoy!
Are you watching anything cool recently?
I'm prepping for a movie for New Line called Final Destination Bloodlines.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a lot of people get slaughtered. I feel bad already. And so I've been, what I've been watching is mostly just to get ideas, to, make suggestions, to maybe capture some stills here and there. So it's mostly for that, not so much for, what's the coolest movie that's out,
right?
And with Shot Deck, of course, I've put together hundreds of shots already, too many, no doubt, that we'll go through. And on the 3rd of June, I'll travel up to Vancouver, of all nice places, and get to the serious part of the prep.
Yeah. Well, for all we know, Vancouver will have better weather than we've had the past week and a half.
For months, we've had rain this year. I mean, if the world is screwed up, we have some little bit of an evidence here.
Yeah. What kind of, for the Final Destination films, is there any kind of, because they are kind of more of like there's got to be more of those than Fast and the Furious is, but is there like a visual coherency throughout them all, or is each project, kind of its own thing?
I think first of all, they're true formula films. Obviously,
yeah.
They have their set rules, and you have to abide by those. But I think in order to really believe what you're seeing, which is is so outrageous here and there. You have to ground the characters in the real world. So I think you can't go stylized and too wacko and too weird. And you have to, believe that those are real people like you and I, or like I. and so the setting when they're discussing their life and what's going on and how to defeat the devil and blah, 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 you want to believe that. And so I think we'll try to make it look good and not overlight it and not make it flat and boring. We'll find nice angles and things and rack from one person to the other and blah, blah, blah. But I think until you get to where things get really scary, you have to be realistic and believable. And then you can let loose and, whatever, have colors and contrast and silhouettes and blasting things out with light. And, so it's, I think, a mix of two things.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and you've probably got a great amount of experience. Just your CV is full of varying genres. So I feel like that balance probably is, going from something more naturalistic to, CSI as an example is pretty stylized.
Yeah. It's so funny. When I started there in 2008 or so, I walked onto the set, to observe what the other DP was doing, and I'm going, holy shoot, there's like 50 lamps over there. Whoa, there's another 30 there, and then I'm looking at the monitor and they're all out of focus, and it has that glorious, now I know it's a Bruckheimer film, saying, wow, that was really beautiful. And then I look away from the monitor, that looks like a lamp store here.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny. And I learned a lot, obviously, about a particular kind of style for that kind of show. And so it was fun. It was very educational for me.
Yeah, it feels like it's a lot easier these days, not just with like LEDs, but just, I mentioned this before in that podcast's not out yet, but a couple conversations ago, where the rise of more sensitive sensors and also cooler, smaller, more versatile LED lights has made it so you maybe don't need a million lamps. You can, practicals are one thing, but just a million lights to make something look natural. You can literally just put big soft source near your face and it's looking good.
Yeah. The question is, are you satisfied with that? That might work for one genre, to basically let the world be what it is, and then just like you said, keep like a soft half light or so. and it looks really pleasing, but for another scene, another genre, is it dramatic enough? Do you want to not light the face at all and just give a little edge light, and keep the audience guessing? So I think there's we, with our new tools, with the new lights and the new cameras and 3200 ISO and all that stuff, and more, we're in a fabulous world, and I mean, if you're a young cinematographer today, you can do anything, it's just fabulous. It's just absolutely exciting.
Yeah. Have you shot with the Venice a lot?
The last jobs were with the Venice, Venice 1 and then the Venice 2. Yeah. And on the last series, which was again for Bruckheimer, CSI Vegas, one season, we were at 3200 a lot, and it was looked totally clean to me. Also, when I went to color correction, we didn't see any artifacts. It was quite astonishing. I didn't underexpose, I would assume. But the option of having to move, or you're stuck, you have to move fast. You got like 12 minutes to lunch. You got to finish the scene because we're putting the stuff on the truck and we're going on location. And I can light the background because it would take 20 minutes. And so let the background go and just lower the intensity here and go 3200. Or we would be at a lower ISO for one camera, and then the other camera's on a 250mm lens, trying to get close-ups and go from person to person with a 2.8. And it's just almost impossible, without rehearsals. And so I say, go put the B camera on 3200, and we gain 2 stops, and we were ready to go. Yeah. And so I love the flexibility of all the new tools.
It really does feel like it's kind of unfortunate. Maybe well, it's probably worse now that technology's speeding along, but it does feel like everything I learned in film school, only like a third of it stayed, because like I learned on 16mm film and on Final Cut 7.
Yeah, sorry.
So now, I still use a spot meter. I still use my spot meter, and then now having a color meter, like one of those newer ones that gives you the full spectral readout and everything. Oh my goodness, absolutely! I'm able to work so much faster just with the color meter.
Yeah,
because you got false color.
Yeah. It's funny. I always used a spot meter all my life. It just made more sense to me because I'm thinking, okay, here's the camera. The camera is looking this way. How can I walk around with the little X-shaped thing, and then how do I translate that? And when I have a very dark wall there and I have a silhouetted person and there's somebody sitting in the sunlight here that is really bright, that never made any sense to me. So if you're using a spot meter, that's what I did. And I could just calculate that person is 3 steps over, we'll hold that. The wall is 3 steps under, that will be fine and ready to go.
Yeah. It's you have a background pretty squarely in photography though, right? Because I came from the spot meter making sense from the zone exposure system, zone system. So that was like, even though that's hard to wrap your head around at first, once you get it, you're like, oh yeah, everything makes sense now. Boom, boom, boom.
Right. Yeah. Photography was more when I was very young, as a hobby. So I didn't do any of that for money or income or as a job. But I think that's the basis of everything, to understand what the long lenses do and what the wide lenses do. And you can start in with an iPhone now, of course, But in the end, the real experience comes during 16mm film or whatever it is, just doing it, And I often meet young people who would like to and who wanna and who dream of, getting into the film business. And I say, well, why don't you go shoot films? And they're going, oh, you think so? No, I'm saying just here's your camera. You have friends, right? Don't you have any friends that help you on the weekends? Go out, shoot stuff. You can edit it for free, and and I mean, learn, and suddenly you get things. You move on.
Yeah, I think there's and I've run into this in my own personal experience, but I think the sort of modern student or young person mentality is to not approach something unless everything is dialed in, which is like good in general. You want to go into stuff with a plan, but I've heard a lot of pushback from younger people on the idea of like, just go shoot it, quote unquote. Because they're like, yeah, but no one will take it seriously, or no one will, I don't have the right tools. And so why would I get started? Or it's not that easy, and I think they're missing the point of like, it's supposed to be, this isn't supposed to go to con, it's supposed to teach you stuff, right? Yeah. Failure. You're supposed to fail.
Right. Learn by doing, it's as simple as that. Yeah, I have a director friend who, when he's not working, he just makes little short films. And so at some point he sent me a text and check out my little fake commercial called Impeachera. That was when Trump was just getting started as president. And so I'm watching this commercial that he shot, with a buddy. It was two people. He shot it, he edited, he wrote it. And he said it cost him like $9 because they had to get to Starbucks at some point, just to finish the day. And it's hilarious and it's just smart. And I'm sure it was shot with an iPhone, And it's basically about a guy, who's having anxiety attacks. And he's going, I can't breathe. I mean, the world is going under and there's so many bad things happening in the world and politics. Oh my God. But now I discovered Impeachera, and once I've been Impeachera, and I feel much better and I see the world in a better light, And it's just a clever idea. So, come up with an idea that people will amuse people or scare people or whatever, or educate people, and use the phone and go out.
Yeah. Well, and the iPhone too. I yesterday did a favor for a friend, although they did pay me a little bit. But and I was just shooting behind the scenes of this commercial they were doing. But the production company, not them, but like the corporation, didn't have. They wanted BTS, but didn't have a budget, so they sent them an iPhone for me to use to film the behind the scenes on.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get good angles and stuff, but I was actually I have a Pixel, an Android, and the photos this thing takes are great. But I have to give credit to Apple. The image quality on those iPhones is outstanding.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Especially the telephoto lens looked, you're able to go like a 26 mil or like a 33 or something. It's like a nice medium lens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been embarrassed a lot. I had an iPhone 8 till recently, until somebody said, this is not good. So I went out. I just don't like giving Apple my money, but that's my personal problem. That shouldn't be discussed here, but anyway.
I'll discuss it. I never want to give them my money. I don't have any. I have an iPad and that's it. And that was a gift.
Yeah. Well, I broke down. I bought a 14th. There you go. Hopefully it will last a long time.
It is a very nice. I actually, this is my daily camera is the old Fujifilm X100. Oh, even though, this is the V, the one that is impossible to get, but all of the X100s are so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did want to ask, because we were talking about it briefly, but, with like so many television shows that you've shot, I was kind of wondering, especially, they have different, your Lucifer versus your Grey's Anatomy versus your CSI or whatever, a lot of different looks, but television inherently is a fast-paced, environment. And I was wondering if you can kind of track like how you maybe first started approaching those jobs and what the things you learned to help speed, be very economical with your setups and get the pages in for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. When a young filmmaker is waiting for everything to be perfect, well, you're never going to get anywhere, because it's never perfect. The things changes. The AD comes during lunch to me and says, we're not shooting that scene in the afternoon. I'm saying, but we're ready. They're prepping it already. Well, we got to go outside because the actor's not going to be there tomorrow. And so we have to shoot the other scene that was planned for tomorrow today. I'm going, okay, let's do it, And what helps is to have experience and have a good crew who really supports you. But in the end, you have to very quickly figure out how to do something in a simple way and still achieve the look, the feel, the rhythm, of the show that you're working on. And I must say, I always have to give credit to the crew, who then supports me and says, well, if we shoot from over here, then we see out the window and we, it's going to get dark, but we put something out there, we can light it, make sure it looks like day. And so I think simplifying it in your head, and then getting everybody on board is my little low budget solution.
Yeah. Are you when it comes to lighting, are you kind of, obviously no one has like a set plan, but have you been able to sort of simplify those setups in a way to achieve what you generally want, or is it completely different per project?
It is a little bit different, but not completely different. In the end, all the showrunners they want to see the people's faces and they want to hear them talk, the engaging dialogue that we have on every television show. And I'm talking about the network show that I've done, And so in the end, also we also often have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in the same scene, and holy shit, we can't spend an hour looking this way and then turning around and relighting and looking this way. So I try to light 180 degrees, by hanging lights. I'll tell the AD it's going to take a little longer because we're going to not have no stands on the floor, but we're going to put all the lights in the ceiling, but we're going to cross shoot and just get it done before lunch, and so I try to simplify it in a way so that I can still achieve, as much really solid footage for the editor, if that makes sense.
Totally. Do you have, most people do, but do you have editing experience yourself?
From editing my own reels, and people giving me material where they're saying, this is what I want to show. How do you have any notes for that? And then I'll go through it, and then I write down all my notes, and then they ignore them. That's usually how it works. Or I have done favors for friends like you do, where I shoot stuff for them, and then they cut it together, and then we watch it, and then we all say, well, the pacing is not right, and why don't we take this out, and why don't we jump to this, or reconfigure the scene, and then we watch it together. So I have editing experience, not as a professional editor, but a long time ago, I already started producing stuff for BBDO in Munich when I still lived there. And those were all little things that I edited, And so I think that is a very crucial part of a DP's base. You got to know about editing. And when I see the episodes, the TV episodes that I shoot, I am often shocked how fast they're cut. And what and that's also an educational process for me, where I can say to the director, the way you're staging that is going to be chopped up beyond belief. You're staging it too slow. If you're waiting for the person to come in and grab the keys, which is important, then they walk all the way over to the couch to pick up the gun, and then pan over, and then the other person comes and the witness that sees all that. They're going to chop it up. It's going to be an insert of the keys. It's going to be an insert of the gun. And then you're going to be in the shot that you're doing. And so I feel like with my experience, I can also help a director, with the future editing process to pace it and to speed it up and get it done properly.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely something I've seen in, smaller indie films, like, beginner indie films or student films, is people walking places. There's always people just walking places.
Yeah. I must say, I'm not a very patient audience. And so when I watch a movie that somebody recommends, and there are people talking about something that has no interest to me, they're talking about a relative or something that something happened, and it never goes anywhere. And I'm going, oh God, come on, guys. And then I look how many minutes I'm in. I'm going 8 minutes in. This is not good. And then I'm waiting. I give it like 12 minutes. And if in 12 minutes, I have no clue what the movie's about, I abandon. I'm a terrible audience.
It's funny. I was just I've done this a few times. I think I started doing it like last year because I really wanted to, I'm not a writer by any stretch, but I often do a lot of one-man gigs. And so I was just thinking about writing and pacing and all this. And so I started, whenever I caught myself noticing like a story beat, I would just write down the where we were in the runtime and what the beat was.
Right.
And I realized that the first one I did this was Doctor Strange, the Marvel film. And by minute 15, and I've noticed it's minute 15 almost across the board with most films, minute 15, he is already in the spiritual sanctum learning shit.
Yeah.
Like we've already, been introduced to him. He has the crash. He almost dies. He's now like in Carmitage or whatever by minute 15. And I'm like, all right, so that's where a lot of people are going wrong. If you scale that down to like a student film, minute 2, we need to be
absolutely
on the move.
Yes, absolutely. I recently, to distract myself, watched some of the Alien movies, and now, of course, Ridley Scott. Not the first one, because I've seen it so many times and it is so good, but he made others, of course, after that. And he's just a master filmmaker. Within minutes, you're on the edge of your seat, and so as a film student, you should study that. How do we get there? What are the storytelling elements, camera, pacing, whatever it might be, or shots or setting or more moody lighting that get the audience going, so you're in the movie. You can't go to the fridge because you got to see what the next minute, and So I that's a great skill that wonderful directors have developed.
Yeah. Which one was it? I think it's Covenant or Prometheus. Which one's the second?
I think Covenant is his second one, if I'm not mistaken, and I like that more than Prometheus.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Covenant really grabbed me, and I'm going, wow, is that well made? Yeah.
Yeah, Covenant. And I, low-key, I know no one agrees with me, neither do the filmmakers, neither do the executives, but I liked Alien 3.
Was good.
The directors, whatever the not real directors,
Yeah,
but whatever that assembly was, I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good too. Yeah,
but I also like Chronicles of Riddick, which is like kind of a spiritual success or settling.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could, because I've interviewed a handful of ASC members, but I never really asked, like, what was your path to becoming an ASC member? Because that is kind of a lot of goals for a lot of DPs, you know, being part of that.
It's interesting. It seemed like an elusive thing. I never really thought about, I must get in there and how do I do it and how do I pursue it and who do I talk to? It just seemed like this wonderful world where the famous people all hang out, you know, and chat with each other and exchange, you know, lovely information that, you know, makes them even better at what they're doing. And I had lunch with Stephen Poster at some point, you know, because I always liked him. I don't know where I met him, and I called him and said, hey, let's have lunch. He said, yeah, okay. We met in Hollywood somewhere, and we're munching. He says, you should become an ASC member. I'm going, I dropped my food. I'm going, Steve, really? You think that's possible? He's looking at me like, idiot. Why not, you know? And he said, you need 2 more people, you know, and I can help you if you need help. And so I asked Mikhail Solomon, who was a friend, you know, at the time, and he said, great idea. And so then it just happened. And suddenly I have the interview. I had put a reel together, of course, and I have the interview. And at that time, this is a while ago, you walk in and you go around the room. There's no COVID. You shake everybody's hand. You say, hi, good, nice to see you. I'm a great fan, blah, blah, blah. And you sit down. And at that time, they had a dado light, one of those spotlights up there. I could barely see something in the spotlight. I'm thinking, wow, this is really inconvenient. And this is kind of scary. And this 12 men, the jury of 12 men sitting there, you know, all Academy Award members going, shit, I shouldn't be here, you know?
Right.
And then they're super kind and they all ask you questions, you know, how did you do that? What's your approach when you read a script? And then, you know, and then they watch the reel. At that point, I relaxed a little bit and I go asking, that looks nice. What kind of lens is that? I'm thinking, shit, what lens was that? And so it just happened. You know, I never expected it to happen. And I realized that the main benefit of being an ASC member is that you can exchange information. You can call anybody. You can get advice from Alan Davio at the time. You know, when I was shooting a guy in a rubber suit, I called Alan Davio, who gave me a half an hour of his time. And also we used to before COVID, do a lot of educational events. You know, so now I find that fantastic because I was young once and I had no clue what I was doing, and people just gave me advice and helped me and made connections to rental houses. And so I kind of fell into the ASC membership.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting is I would say probably maybe not all of them, but the majority of the ASC members after our conversations, like, you know, well, we're in the portion of the thing we're going to cut out where we're just saying bye and everything. And they've always been like, hey, take down my number. Here's my email. Like, hit me up if you need anything. I found that the majority of the ASC members, if not all of them, are very, that leadership thing is very important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, as you get older, it just feels good to share stuff, you know, and it's interesting that how, you know, like you were saying, when a film student doesn't want to do something because they feel they're not ready, damn it, you know, and so and often, you know, when there's just like 30 kids there, and I call them kids because now I'm a little older, and I'm asking them, what would you like to know from us? And then they're asking them, what filters did you use on the so-and-so? And I'm going, that was like 8 years ago. I don't know what filter I used. You know, what's your favorite ISO setting? I'm going, guys, why don't you ask, how do you get a job? You know, how do you prepare yourself for a job meeting? If you're lucky enough that somebody wants to meet you and talk about a project, how do what do you do? And there's never anybody. They're not even thinking about that. And so then I just spit stuff out. I said, no, I figured out at some point that people not only want me to be prepared for the meeting and know about the project, unlike Eric Messerschmidt, but I found that if I bring a gift, that puts my foot in the door. And so Starship Troopers 2, I read the script, the zombie movie, and I love it.
Was your first film?
There was the first one, the big first Starship Trooper one with Verhoeven directed it. Phil Tippett did the bug.
Phil Tippett.
Yeah, and so Phil Tippett is directing this one as a follow-up, and of course Sony wanted to make a bright, colorful film, but Phil Tippett wanted to make a zombie movie, so really dark and grainy.
If anyone's seen Mad God, holy shit.
I have watched 90% of it, then I gave up, although I love him.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I walk in there, and I mean, I know the characters, and we're talking, and I'm saying, you want it dark and grainy? Here I am, dark and grainy it is. I always like to support the company, in any way I can. And I brought a box of, sugar, because in the film, the zombies, keep popping sugar cubes, and they're all looking at it. And I could tell there was a spark of excitement at that moment. And I got the job. I don't know if it was because of the box of sugar cubes, but so that's what I've been doing when I can, when it makes sense, to just bring a little gift and something where they're going, oh, that's cute, that's funny. Yeah. So, but how do you get a job? But that's something a film student should ask a professional who has been doing it for years. Just one example.
Yeah, I think it is. I've been thinking about this a lot, and we've talked about it on the podcast. But I think prior to imaging devices being so good, so easily available, like we said, either a cell phone or an inexpensive DSLR or whatever. Yeah. You really did have to do a lot of pre-production, but now you can, and just thinking in general about like where you want to go. And there wasn't a lot of like, unless you could afford to shoot 35, there wasn't a lot of flash necessarily. Yeah. Whereas now any of these cameras with even the inexpensive lenses are very good. And you can get, so I think that's why you end up getting a lot of like filter questions or favorite ISO, whatever, because they're really trying to maximize the potential of their piece of gear. And that's it. They forget about the rest.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when a young person wrote a script and wants to make it as like the best, demo of their work and so on, and I read it and I'm going, this is not something that's unique in any way. Maybe it's been done, I've got to be polite, before, not say 1,000 times. But so a friend of mine, who's a very, very good first AD and a writer and a producer and so on and a director, he said, I just feel like making my own feature film. And I said, holy shoot, how we're going to get the money? And he said, we're going to do crowdfunding. And, I have a neighbor, she's really old, but she loves us. She's going to give me $2,000. I'm going, wow. I said, my wife and I will give you $1,500. How about that? You got $3,500 already. And he wrote a script that you can make in the house, and it's not dumb and boring. And so it's a little zombie movie. He gets infected and she's going to keep taking care of him. And she has to bring people home so they can eat. And, and so we shot that thing in 9 days, 90-minute movie, 9 days, because the man is organized, And the first thing I did is when I walked in the door and I met the, costume and makeup and hair people, I said, guys, we got to be really fast here. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and then we're going to roll in 5 minutes. So if you need to do last looks, we're not going to call last looks and then wait, till. So I said 5 minutes, guys, and then you guys make sure everything is correct. And then we say, okay, roll camera, and everybody walks in and we do the scene. And sure enough, we finished the movie in 9 days because the script, not only witty and fun, was written for that purpose, and movies on Netflix or somewhere, and it's making a little bit of money, and it's a great directing sample. The acting was good. And so, right to, what you can achieve, but keep it interesting. There's got to be something about it that we want to see.
Yeah, the guy David Sandberg, he did Annabelle, and Shazam and a few other things. He did the same thing. He had a little Blackmagic Pocket, the OG Blackmagic Pocket, I think, and shot like a bunch of shorts. I think he got Annabelle off the back of like a short he shot in his house with like his wife.
Yeah. See?
And now he made Shazam.
Yeah. Yeah, talking about the Blackmagics, what I like to do is just bring a bunch of little cameras, and then no matter what it is, if it's a feature film or a TV series or whatever, and unnoticed to some people, I just put one over there with a wide lens and hide one over there behind the thing, and then if you get some cool angles, and the editors use them, great. If they don't want to use them or they don't fit, the scene or whatever, then who cares, But I found the quality quite astonishing of those cameras. I mean, the last theatrical movie that didn't go theatrical because it's a modern world was an MGM movie called On a Wing and a Prayer, based on a true story of a family who charters a plane and the pilot dies. Yeah, so we're in this small plane, and I'm like, holy shoot, there was no room for anything. And so we had 2 Sonys, I think Sony 1s at that time. And I think I had like 3 or 4 Blackmagics, and I would mount them somewhere. I would put one with an 8mm lens on a seat, and as the actor goes by through that little plane, we get that cool little dramatic moment of a person walking by. And hey, and you could not, don't tell Sony, you could not tell the difference between the Blackmagics and the Sonys. It's just astonishing. We shot raw, Blackmagic raw, so that we would be flexible in pose, and I had to make sure I exposed properly and I also get it in focus because the ACs didn't always have time to go in and make sure that I don't screw it up. Mm-hmm. But really, to me, helpful, and I think the producers and the directors appreciate a few little extra angles here now. And I'm not going to charge for that. I'm not going to come in and say, if you give me $3,000 more, I'll get you more shots. I'll just put them in there, and if they work, great.
And so these are your own personal pocket cameras or whatever?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have some different ones. I have a little 4K and old one that's really small, a micro 3/4 with some good short, tiny lenses, and then, 12K and so on. And I use them even on TV shows. Sometimes, we put it in the ceiling and just point straight down, and holy shoot, it's a long dialogue scene. The editor's using it, because he's desperate to go somewhere else than from one close-up to another. And so it makes me feel good. I find it fun, and the crew loves it. And they're saying, we're putting a camera on the ceiling. Hey, yeah, let's go, So that's me.
Well, and I also think too, like you, when you have little like placement cameras like that, where it's not set, it doesn't matter if it gets a good shot. If it does, awesome. But you don't have to, it's a zero stress camera placement, and you can probably be a little more creative in that sense because there's no stakes.
Right. Yeah. And I don't want to push the camera crew too much because they already have a full-time job. So if we're running 2, often 3 cameras at the same time, they're maxed out. Yeah. So all I ask them is, I set it up, I put it there, I double check my settings, and they're pretty simple on the Blackmagics. I do check focus and exposure, and then I walk away and say, please guys, roll it, and slate it, and that's what they do. And then we, of course, put it in the reports. And if they forget to turn it off, it's not a big deal. At some point we realize that it's still running. and like you said, if you get a good shot, cool. If you don't,
Well, and if it keeps running, you got some interesting BTS for the DVD.
Absolutely.
That's actually, speaking of kind of like logistics and like, I suppose, somewhat non-creative stuff, bringing your own cameras. This is something that I've spoken to a little bit on the internet and seem to have a lot of people interested in it. And that is how to price your work, especially if you're an independent creator, freelancer, whatever.
Yeah.
One of the ways to make sure that you are getting the money that you deserve early on is to, line item charge for those things that would otherwise be rentals.
Right.
But for you, what are some of those things that maybe once you got to shoot with a budget, or maybe you're more comfortable, that you think is a value add and gets the executives or whoever on your side that you can do, like bringing your own cameras? Like, wow, you've added a bunch of value. We like you as a person because it didn't cost us anything. What are some other things that are kind of similar to that you've run into in your career?
I think the main argument is you brought some free cameras. We love you a lot. That is really what happens. And that's my intention, to say, guys, I'm there half an hour early every morning. I'm there after work if you want to discuss something or we'll take a quick look at a location. So you guys own me, for the production. And so if I can bring some extra cameras and some get extra shots, great. How do I answer your question? Repeat the core of it.
Yeah, I kind of I tend to ramble a little bit. I was just saying, what are some what's a better way to phrase that? Like it's one thing to not charge your client for equipment. Sometimes like I don't know when I'm doing corporate work, like I'm not sitting there going microphone, boom hole. It's just like audio setup, $20, whatever. But at the end of the day, you're building goodwill with those people, and they want to. Most people are going to work with you again if they like you, not your camera. So I guess maybe this isn't a great question, but is there anything else that you kind of comes to mind when you're trying to build that goodwill with the gifts, bringing the little gifts? That's your thing is like one thing I think is
maybe yeah. I mean, I'm hoping not to be difficult, for people to work with. This is really an iffy subject matter if you talk to other people about me. But I like to have fun on the set. I like people to be very prepared. I don't like them to be late. I don't like them to play on their phones. Let's really focus, make it as good as we can within the budget and the time allowed, and have a good time. Go home to our families and to our friends and to the bar or wherever people are going at the end of the day. And the same within my, work with producers and directors. It's not my money that we're spending, it's their money. And so I got to be fiscally responsible. I can't order stuff that I don't think, I don't want to use that today. I got to think about it and say, hey guys, maybe if we get a periscope for the scene, we can get something that will really make the scene stand out and give us production value. That thing is going to cost $2,000, and, then if the producer says, we're so tight, we're over in, construction and this, and 2,000 is a lot of money. Then I say, okay, well, we were planning on having a little crane on Friday, forget the crane. I'm going to put it up on a ladder and we'll get a shot from the ladder. That will be cool for the edit. And we'll take that money, put it in the periscope. And so I try to work with everybody so that we all get along, achieve something really good and go home at the end of the day happy. And hopefully they remember me when they have the next gig, saying, that guy, what was his name? I had that weird name, but, he did like cool angles and, blah, blah. And so I always want to think that I'm going to have to get another job someday. I like having good vibe on the set.
Yeah. This is, I suppose to rephrase what you're saying, it's good to know kind of what each department values so you can be a value add to them, because maybe not the director probably isn't, maybe they are, but maybe the director isn't financially motivated. So you're more speaking to their creative tendencies, or maybe the grips, the grips are going to have a hard time rigging something. So hopefully, you've seen something else maybe that would work there instead. Yeah. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel I have to help every department if it makes them, if it helps them and makes their work better, or if I can say, that watch that you couldn't get, it's not that important in the scene. We were all saying, oh, that watch would be great. We could start on the watch and then open the scene because the guy's rich and he's an idiot and he's got the gold everywhere. And I'm saying, we couldn't get the watch, then we start on the golden chain, So we all have to, we got to work together. We got to make it, it's an effort of a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of, this is going to be a weird pivot, but one of the films that for whatever reason had a lasting impact on me because of the soundtrack, the CD that was released that you could purchase, was Resident Evil Apocalypse. And,
really interesting.
Yeah, it was for a young angsty teenager. All that like metal hard rock stuff was just right up my alley. Still is to this day. But that's for anyone listening, that's an amazing soundtrack for the music of the time.
Interesting.
But I was wondering kind of what your experience was shooting that film, because the Resident Evil films, especially the first two, I think especially the first two are actually quite good. The other ones, I think, became more comic booky as opposed to like horror or whatever. But it's a video game. But yeah, what was your experience like on that shoot? Because it is a fun film.
It was great. I had known the director, Alexander Witt, since I was, I want to say, a kid, an AC in Munich. And so we stayed in touch over the years. And then he moved to LA, I moved to LA. And when that film came up, it was just a great opportunity to learn, on a much, much higher level than I had done before. I mean, the second unit was bigger than some of the movies I had shot, and the second unit was going every day, all night long. It was all night shoot. I think, I never saw the sun. But anyway, it was big and it was scary at times. Now, we were in Toronto for the whole shoot. And where City Hall is pretty much in the middle, surrounded by skyscrapers, we added on a huge structure that we exploded on one side, and then on the next side at night with Mila Jovovich, double running through as we're exploding it with 3 helicopters in the middle of downtown Toronto, 1 camera ship, and then 2 helicopters who were pretending to fire. And of course, in the middle of that square was a huge pole that we couldn't remove. Somebody from the city said, "You can't remove that pole." And we're all going, "It's just a pole. We cut it off. We weld it back on. We can't remove the pole." So we put from the Canadian FAA, whatever the rule was, a blinking red light there. And so 2 nights in a row, we were terrified that something stupid happens, and nothing happened. And Alexander, our director, got 14 cameras from Panavision, 14 film cameras. I don't know who loaded them all. It was all so fast. It was so big. Somebody loaded them all, and somehow they were all turned on. And then somebody yelled action, and somehow it exploded, and the helicopters were moving, and then the helicopters are pulling out, and we're all going, "Oh my God, everybody's okay." And the guys who owned the video game from Japan, I don't know their names, they were there, and they're going, they were watching them all, just couldn't believe that what they had dreamt up in their heads was real there. It was like full-blown action. So there were just some very, very memorable things, that I will never forget in my life. And the first shot they made me do was a deserted town square, and there was one of those streetcars, a tram in the middle. Obviously something terrible had happened. There were no people, no zombies there. And so we're on a big crane. We're starting on a wide shot, this whole town square, and we're pushing down, we're pushing into the tram. And there's Mila Jovovich, sitting there going, "Oh my God, what happened to me?" To a close-up. I'm going, "Holy shit, this is going to be so hard." That was my first shot. And of course, it worked out, and I figured out how to do these things. And so I have the best memories from that shoot.
Yeah, the 2 things that come to mind are one, obviously the action's cool, but that I'm a big fan of effects, and not visual, like visual effect, costumes, props, production design, all that kind of thing. And the Apocalypse, or what's the character's name? The big angry zombie dude. Is his name Apocalypse?
I forgot his name, but he's got a gun that shoots 3,000 rounds a minute. That I remember.
And that was a real gun, right?
A real gun. It was insane. Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes visual effects look good now, but I think 3,000 blanks going off all at once is probably a sight to behold.
Insane. Yeah. Insane.
Do you even attempt to expose for that, or do you just go, "We're going to expose for the scene, and that's just going to blow"?
No, with somebody like Alexander, who's one of the biggest second unit directors in the world, of course, James Bond and all that stuff, and many Ridley Scott movies. He just places so many cameras. When I turn my head, people go, "Oh, there's another camera over there," and then look this way. "Oh, there's a guy handheld." So there's cameras everywhere. We're shooting in every direction at the same time. Even in the big square where those confrontations took place, we had a 120-foot light over there and a 120-foot light over there. Everything was lit up because that was the only way for Alexander to function, to just go. and grab those moments, and so just exposing was the way to go.
Yeah. That actually, now that I'm thinking about it, my memory of it, and obviously because of the posters blue, but you're shooting at night. Was that primarily like an HMI show, or were you doing a lot of grading after the fact?
It was an HMI show. It was all HMIs because it was so big. We had to light such large areas, but we did grading then, to give it shape, with contrast and color mood, cyans and blues and whatever, because the cameras were looking in every direction. I couldn't light, directional, and there were also many things that, like we were in a cemetery that was 3 hours away from Toronto, and I couldn't scout it. There was no way even to look at it. So I ordered one of those 120 foot with units with 9 HMIs, because thinking, I got to light a large area. And then I got there, and there were thousands of trees, massive, 50, 60 foot trees. And there was no way to use a light from above. It will never get anywhere. And so I'm thinking, okay, if we put it on that dirt road over there, and we leave all the lights on the ground, then I get a side light from there. And so I did stuff that I'm embarrassed to say, So we had this very, very, very expensive tool. And all we did is, we sit down on the ground and turn them all on. Ready to go, guys. And then the rest was Kinos at the time, that we hid behind tombstones so that as Mila's walking through there, she has a little bit of light in her face.
Yeah. Yeah, the Kino era is what I will call the Kino era is such a fascinating time in filmmaking, because I guess that's emblematic of what was happening in like the late 90s, early 2000s, which was HMI everything, tungsten is too hot, put some Kinos in there.
Yeah. Well put, yeah.
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 We can blame Fincher.
Those were good lights, and now, of course, we in the same housings because they're still so great. We put our 4 foot, LED units. And, you close the door if you want to, but, any color you want. I mean, it's incredible.
I was just looking up snap bags for mine because I have the Diva 20, and I would just like it to be a little bigger. So I need to get one of those. Yeah. But speaking of color meters, the Kino, I've said this a few times on this podcast, the KinoFlow LEDs are like the most accurate, spectrally excellent lights you can get. Yeah. Sky panels can't hold a candle to it. Geminis, they're all great, but the Kinos are the best. Not as bright as I would like, but accuracy wise and spectrally, they're untouchable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, very, very smart people, that I don't know how they did that because they developed their own gases in there. And that's, this is great science.
Oh, the tubes. Yeah. No, I meant the LEDs.
Oh, the LEDs? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the Kino LEDs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. That stuff's great. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very true. Yeah.
They were actually very nice. I had a set of those Diva fluorescents for years. And then I guess they stopped making them, but they still need to repair them. So they've been hitting up people and going, hey, we know you have the fluorescents. Can you turn those in and we'll give you a deal on the LEDs? And I was like, okay. And then they gave me an insane deal on truly insane. Yeah, way below whatever sale they've ever had. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll take the LEDs then. Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Had another thought and it's going away. Yeah. Do you have like a preference in the type of material you shoot? Because obviously with Final Destination or any of these other kind of darker, grittier things that you've got on your slate, those are fun. But even Lucifer wasn't that dark looking of a show, or it's certainly not great.
Oh, no. I know the scripts have to be good, and I love being surrounded by people that I enjoy going to work with. That's probably not enough, for a DP to or to go to work. But if the script's interesting, I shoot a comedy. If it's funny, if the situations are good, if the characters are good. My personal preferences are more dramatic, more action, more thriller, darker. But in the end is, Lucifer was fantastic. It was the best gig ever because of Tom Ellis, number one, being a dancer and a singer and British with the accent and then good looking and the nicest number one you can imagine, knew everybody's name, always on time, knew his stuff. And so what a gig, and then we would go out on location to some crazy places, and it was still Bruckheimer, so we could futz and play with it with wide lenses, long lenses. It was a great gig, it was just enjoyable. But I also get a little bored doing the same thing, so at some point I want to do something else and learn, meet new people and have new challenges. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Who are some DPs that have inspired you recently? Some people who have kind of impressed you or make you want to do better yourself?
Oh my God, there are so many. I mean, Eric Messerschmidt, who I just watched on your. Oh, there you go. I think it depends on also what they're doing, because not everything the famous DP does interests me or do I enjoy, but then I'll catch something which is probably the subject matter. And so I don't know if I want to name any names, because there are so many that are so talented, ladies and guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Even on that note, I've been fortunate enough to, I think, I'd like the number to go up, but I think maybe a third of the people I've interviewed on this podcast have been really talented women. And especially, I mean, I've named her before, but Ellen Curris was just an absolute expert.
Yeah,
I would love to have her back on and talk more because that woman is clinically like she knows the craft in a way that I notice a lot of people potentially don't.
I'm not a highly technical person, so if you ask me if you're going too far into technical details about cameras and the sensors and the processing and the CDLs and all that stuff and the ACEs and what it's all called, I like to surround myself with people who are very knowledgeable. Like I'd like to have a really good DIT by my side, who watches so I don't screw up. So that I want to hear, that I'm exposing just a little bit too much because I'm always a little bit on the bottom of my exposure. I feel it looks more organic and nicer, maybe even if there's a subtle hint of noise or grain. But I think if I have the right people around me, I'm succeeding no matter what.
Yeah. Do you find, there's a lot of discourse about how television and films have gotten darker, and I have my own theories about what's happening there. But I was wondering, have you heard of any of that, and do you have any thoughts on the ever? Because I think all DPs prefer. I mean, Messerschmidt in his Instagram bio, it says it's a quote, and it says it's not dark, it's rich. I think we all feel that way.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I think, with the streamers, and I'm not saying anything new, with HBO and so on, and Showtime and Netflix, having no in-house rules except maybe 4K, which is silly, but they have no rules on, what it looks like, but how much contrast and how many silhouettes there are, and if everything's blue, then everything's blue. And I think I'm hoping that has forced the networks to let loose a little bit. And let us, and when we're on a network show, push the envelope a little bit more. And I think we are when we're there, to go a little bit more cinematic and theatrical on TV, which we should, And I think that's where people like Bruckheimer come in, where they're pushing the envelope, and they come to the DP and say, why did you shoot this way? I could have looked this way, it would have been backlit. And you're right, I should have shot it backlit, And so, but my senses always go a little darker, and give it a mood. I think it just grabs your attention more than if something that is flat and too bright. And
it's like I can't remember. Someone said it somewhere, but like if you speak softly, people lean in to listen. It's kind of the same thing visually. If it's a little dimmer, people gotta. But I think too, it's like I've watched the same thing, on the streamer versus on a Blu-ray versus, some, on a different TV or whatever. And it's even a bad TV with a Blu-ray is way more visually intelligible than a great TV with a poor internet connection. And I think that seems to be a lot of the issues.
Right.
People just aren't educated on their display. I mean, I'm a freelance colorist on the side, and like having to learn all these different display things. Really...
And it's getting worse. I mean, everybody comes out with different TVs and different technologies, and then you go to people's homes and they're not set up properly. And you're going, I feel so bad for you. This looks terrible, and it's because you bought a very expensive TV with a new technology, an OLED or whatever it might be, and you got screwed. You spent too much money on something that's not set up properly. Yeah, and I don't know how we solve that, because there should be something that adjusts everything before you take it home, and of course that's not possible.
Yeah. Well, even I've got a cheaper TV, but it's still very nice, but it is inexpensive. And it says like, ooh, it has Dolby Vision. And then I've watched the same content on that Dolby Vision versus an LG C1 or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, we tried. This TV tried.
Yeah, that's funny.
You can give it the same title, but...
Right, yeah. But I mean, advertising is something that you shouldn't take so seriously, Kenny,
Yeah. You kind of touched on it earlier, but speaking of like dark cinematography and stuff and television is going back to the CSI thing. Like a lot of that show, when it's not outside, all the labs are very dark. And I had seen in an interview, or maybe you heard it, that you were saying that like the look was the look, and no DP who touched that show really affected it. They kind of stuck with the look. But I was wondering, is that kind of cinematography easier on... Oh, you guys switched to digital during your tenure, didn't you?
Yeah. God, you did your homework. Yeah.
So what was that transition like? Because I imagine shooting film, when it goes under, it just gets dark, but digital kind of gets grainy, or maybe that wasn't the case, or...
It was very interesting. So I was there from, I think, 2008 till 2015, till the end of the series. And maybe 2012 or maybe 2000, I don't know, but CSI Miami and CSI New York had gone digital long before us, and the showrunners, the producers, nobody wanted to switch from film because everybody was happy, and finally CBS said, guys, come on, man, everybody else can do it. You can probably do it too, and you must. And then there was a dictate. And so on my last episode of whatever season 12 or whatever, I don't know. I asked Ari to give me an Alexa, and the first one, and we shot simultaneously. And then the next day went to Post Group or wherever our post house was at the time. We did a split screen, and I had exposed it like the film, and obviously it was the same lighting that we had done for years and years. And holy shoot, the Ari Alexa had a cinematic look like film. The only thing that was missing, because it could hold all the highlights and could hold detail in the darks, the only thing that was missing was that beautiful film grain, And so we're all going, wow, this is so close. And then just because I asked the colorist to plug in some whatever 52 or 19 or whatever film grain, and sure enough, we dialed it in a little bit, and we could not tell the difference. And so there was no more argument about saying, we must shoot film because it's going to look better. And then the very first episode of the next season that I shot was digital, and I was a little nervous. And I didn't make any adjustments in lighting, though, because our little proof of concept, told me that the camera can handle it. And sure enough, we had two Alexas on set, and the skin tones look beautiful. The faces look great. All the out of focus highlights looked very similar to what we had done before, and we moved on and never looked back.
Yeah, that show does have a lot of like little background blinkies and
It looks like a lamp store. You walk in, you're going, as a lamp store. What are you selling?
Yeah. Were you guys putting just little, I saw someone, on YouTube or whatever, was just for their own, they were trying to like mimic the look. I saw this years ago, so I could be misremembering it. But they basically would take button cell batteries and just get LEDs with like a little resistor so they would blink or stay, and just tape them and just like place them around in the back. Was that kind of what was going on, or were they all actually attached to stuff?
I would prefer if you didn't tell people that little trick.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what I do. you usually forget. And we're in the lab, we're going, oh, yeah, we're almost lit, 2 cameras now ready to go. And I'm going, holy shit, my little lights. And I have this little box and I pull them out and I turn them on and I have double stick and I run into the set and going, okay, we're going to see this machine. I stick one on there. We're going to see this machine. Oh, on the printer, they can, put them, blah, blah, blah. So, and they're all going, geez, dude, why didn't you think of that earlier? And then I ran, I was like, oh, ready, guys, ready, let's roll. And as long as they're out of focus, you win. When the actor walks to the machine and picks up the thing and you see the little thing that's sticking on there, you're going, what? Why is that light sticking on there? So you got to think a little bit where you put them. But when they're out of focus, it brings the set to life. If you're in a lab, it works.
Yeah. I remember there's like an urban graffiti book I had that called them LED throwies. And if you like tape them in with a magnet, you can like chuck them onto bridges and stuff. And there's just a weird single light up there for no reason.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting to hear that you didn't change the lighting for those setups at all, though, because I feel like maybe I have just received that answer a bunch, but I guess in my head, film always has to be exposed more. But I guess what was kind of the average stop kind of in those sets? Because in my head, it's like a 1.4.
No, it was a 2.8 because we used mostly the big Panavision zooms, not 24 to 250 or whatever they are, the 10 to 12 buys. 12 by 8. We were stuck at a 2.8 with the lighting as it was with all the practicals and everything with 500 ASA. 2.8 was the widest we could open, and so that was the stop. And we used the same zooms then, with PL mounts. And so it was a 2.8.
And was that overexposing or not overexposing, but was the, I guess were the lights set to 2.8 or were you,
the background lights, the practicals were whatever they were, and we would tip them up a little bit, not too much, just a little bit, so you saw a sliver, and they were overexposed and looked pretty, like they had on film. And in regards to lighting, the exposure with the lighting on the actors and the little edges that were required, you must have a backlight on a Bruckheimer show. Yeah. They were what they were. They were not. It just worked. I credit the camera. We moved from film to digital, and I don't want to say we didn't learn anything, but it was easy
transition.
Yeah.
What are some kind of? Did you learn any like storytelling or workflow type things from Bruckheimer working with him for so long?
I learned that taste, and we have a good relationship where there's a friendly back and forth, meaning there is criticism, but it's not, why would you do that? Blah, 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 blah. For example, their taste is not to see what they call an orb of a practical. So if a practical's tipped up too far and you see the whole round thing, it's just not sexy or elegant, So at some point, when the set deck people or prop people run in and they do things, they tip them up, or an electrician that is a guest electrician tips it up so we see it, and then we're rolling going, oh shit, and I didn't see it in time. And so then eventually I tell everybody, okay, we're tipping them up a little bit just so we sizzle. So there's a taste that they have, in regards to long lenses. Don't be on mediocre lenses. When you can, go to a longer lens, back up with the camera, go to a wider lens, go close, go low. And so it's stuff that we all, I think, understand and enjoy. And so I know their style and their taste by now. Also, same with colors. If every light is white, this is boring. Mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, it is. It is funny because, and we learned this with shooting DV. Obviously, they have to zoom in to get any separation and all that. And those little tricks that we learned prior to the DSLR era to make things look more quote unquote cinematic. Yeah. All still work, but then people go, oh, good for you. You used a 100, be bold, shoot on a 24.
Yeah.
There's a strange counterculture like that.
Yeah. But it's okay. Do you do your thing? I do my thing, in the end, if you like your way better, you win, and if I like my way better, I win. So
yeah, two opposite approaches, Bruckheimer versus Chivo.
Yeah. Yes, very true.
Something to learn from everyone.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on the hour, so I want to be, cognizant of your time. But I'd love to have you back to talk about, I guess, the Final Destination film or anything really.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
But the way I end all these podcasts with the same two questions, but since you're not really promoting any specific, or were you intending to promote a specific film?
No.
Okay, yeah. The brief just said like here to hang out. I went, okay, cool. So skip that. The second question, a lot of times people ask like, oh, what's the best piece of advice you got? And I find that the answer tends to be the same for everyone, or there's like 30 set answers. So what's the worst piece of advice you ever got?
Yeah. I think when somebody says that a DP needs to be arrogant in order to be respected and feared and all that stuff, I think you should be a team player. You should have a voice. You should earn your respect. But when somebody tells me, the biggest and most famous and the best DPs, come on the set and they yell and they scream and they stomp up, their foot. And so that seemed fishy to me when I was starting out and somebody said that. And so maybe that works for some people, but certainly not for me. I think we're all team players. We're all working on the same goal. And, I think we achieve it better if we're, all in a good mood and are prepared and just go for it.
Yeah, I've actually heard people mention that I feel like that I feel like I've said the word era about 106 times in the past hour, but that age of like you're saying, like people coming on set and stomping their feet and trying to be feared versus respected. I'm hoping that's going away because I've been on a couple sets like that, and everyone from even the director, the AD, they're like, we haven't seen this side of this person. Like, fuck, we're never doing this again.
Yeah.
I think that's the quickest way to get fired these days, or not called back.
At least not get called back. I mean, we have some directors, or have had some directors in the distant past, who also came on really strong and pretended to be somebody really big and famous and knowledgeable and superior to everybody else. And it just doesn't work, because nobody wants to help them either, because if you're staying away, you're not going to get yelled at, so why not let the guy or woman do whatever she wants, and then we wait, till they tell us, and so everybody's standing around. And so it's just, I like to be proactive. I want everybody to just be, on the same team and I love collaboration. I want the camera operators to tell me about what they're seeing, So if I'm saying, so guys, we're obviously here because that's where the windows are. And then, the big camera operator says, well, what if I step on the side, they go around all the way to the other side and cross the window. I'm like, holy shit, that's cool. Let's do that. Yeah. So I always the same with the focus pullers. Sometimes the focus pullers are saying, what if I rack slow to the other person? That will be a dramatic moment. I'm going, let's do a take like that. And sure enough, in the cut, as we're wondering how the scene is developing, we're seeing, in the foreground, the eye and the ear, and it takes too long to get back there. And I'm going, shit, that's dramatic. I would have never thought of that. And so I want people to be, to have fun and just think, it makes me happy. And we usually come up with great stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I started in theater when it comes to like creative stuff and, photography and stuff too. But that always was the fun part for me, was the collaboration. The end result is kind of like, it feels separate. It does, I got into filmmaking to work with other people on the end product, but the end product is just going to be what it is, and hopefully it's the best version that it can be.
Yeah.
But yeah, people who want to come in and like, no one fuck with my vision. I'm like, okay, Mr. Vision, whatever. Have
Yeah.
We're all here to serve you, of course.
Yeah. Well, if you say that on a TV set, the editor's going to fuck with your vision, and you're going to end up with whatever you're going to end up. Because we have our dreams on set, and we have our vision, and we have our dreams, and we're developing things, and and then I watch it cut, and we have 44 minutes. We can't have 46 minutes because it's 44 minutes with the commercials, to leave space. And I'm going, wow, that moves fast, and there's so much missing, that seemed cinematic and seemed production value wise, beef up everything. Is not there because it's about the dialogue, and we got to get going. So.
That is the advantage to the streamers is, like something like Succession or, whatever, Mandalorian, Andor, All these shows I'm watching. Well, I guess Mrs. Davis. I was just watching because I've interviewed a couple of DPs for that.
Yeah,
and one episode's 38 minutes, one episode's an hour and a half, one episode's 45. It's just like it's as long as it needs to be.
but that's how it should be. I'm surprised that the network still exists. Really, who watches TV with commercial breaks?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think commercials can be really cool and fun to watch and exciting and inventive and blah, blah, blah. But who watches a storyline that's interrupted by commercials? I can't wrap my head around it. Yeah. So, I mean, they still exist. It's astonishing to me.
Yeah. And also it seems like the classic, like if I think back to like Star Trek, Next Generation or whatever, the act breaks that commercials broke, like there was like a definite pause, cliffhanger type thing, so you could mentally. And now it just feels like, and here's a commercial.
Yeah,
middle of a sentence. There we go. By Charmin.
Yeah. Well, you would have to write to it, But in editing, everything gets so chopped up and moved around that even if you did write for that and created the cliffhangers, they're not going to be there by the time it's cut. It's just. But people like watching TV, so I'm glad for that.
Yeah, and commercials, fun to work on a lot of times. A lot of places to.
No doubt about that. No doubt about that. You learn a lot, and also you learn how much you can get into the specifics, into the details. To give you nightmares, of course, but also where somebody says, "The pen should really be this way because the blah 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 blah." Oh, yeah, I would have never thought about that. And so it's a very different perspective, when you're working on a commercial than on anything else.
Yeah, I actually have I know we're just going on. I'll let you go in a sec, but the client notes. I think every filmmaker before they get on a set where like your reputation matters should have to do a bunch of commercials where you have ridiculous notes from clients that you're like, I'm the viewer and I don't give a shit about this. Like,
yeah, yes, the client notes.
Because that way, once you deal with that, you know how to zen out when you get bad stuff on your plate, Yes.
I was an assistant on a bunch of commercials for a very high-profile company in Munich, owned by a DP and a producer, director. And what I had never seen before was the clients were not allowed to walk onto the stage. So we had cameras that could show what is going on, and then of course we had a video tab, and so there was a beautiful monitor. There was a kitchen with a fridge and a bar and a very comfortable lounge, and so they couldn't go in, so they had to sit out there and they had to give notes and comments to themselves until somebody came out and said, so you guys, what do you think? And then we would have a huge lunch break across the street at an Italian restaurant, and so they were physically separated from the making of the commercial. And I thought that's the way to do it,
I've actually have you heard of that? Especially giving them a bar too, so maybe they'll chill out, have a couple beers.
Yeah. Oh, there was everything there. Yeah.
Have you seen the like Frame.io camera to cloud stuff?
Not in great detail. I know about it though. Mm-hmm.
So I've used it a handful of times. It's a very cool technology, but yeah. I was also thinking like you could theoretically, because the clips are coming in as they're shot, right. You could have those clients, they don't even have to be on set. They can just be at home on their laptop. The clip comes in, and then just like normal Frame.io, they can type in the note they have, they can draw on it, and then those are all just saved. And then someone else on set can like review those notes and be like, oh, hey. And there doesn't have to be any, it's like an email where you can rant and rave and rally against whatever you're reading, but then you get to send back a very polite, thank you, we've noted these changes, blah, blah, blah.
Have their clients on the other side of the world. I was visiting Blackmagic, and they were introducing me to their version of it, where you have a very, very live, instantaneous playback, all over the place. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a bad idea, because then the executives and the producers and the writers and everybody's going to be, watching stuff live, and they can like give notes. So I hope I don't get too close to that system.
Yeah. Do you have like I guess this will be a bonus question. Do you have like a working relationship with Blackmagic? Because I think that's who must have linked us up. But do you, obviously I doubt maybe they do. I doubt they just like pay you to go promote their stuff. But how did that relationship with them come about?
I discovered their cameras at some point, and I started using them, with the $40,000 cameras on set, and realizing, holy shoot, they're easy to use. The color science is, wonderful. The contrast, the range, the skin tones, they intercut well. And so I just, with John Parenteau, who represents them, we become friends. And so, I don't get paid. Jesus, no. But, I just love using the gear, and, it is, reliable. It just works, and, so that's really where this comes from. I just love the gear. And, when I see other people using, I think I can say the brand, like little Sonys and so on, which also make beautiful images, I always find that the Blackmagics now have a more cinematic feel to me, to my eye. Yeah.
Like the FX3, which is just an A7 in a different body, and the FX6, amazing cameras. But there is something interesting about the Sony sensors, and I don't include the Venice. The Venice is its own amazing little scenario, but they do tend to be kind of like people, shit on their color science, but I think the issue is that it's too accurate, and so it's not. And like your Canon, your Blackmagic, your Arri tend to give an inherent look right off the bat. Obviously, any camera you capture enough data, you can manipulate it in post, make anything look like anything. But yeah, it's like you'll hear skin tones a lot. And I'm like, it's not that it's actually more correct. Like on Sony, I look very pink because I'm naturally very pink.
Not here on my monitor. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, it's it's a Canon. It's a personal point of view for no question. But I just look at an image and I say that looks really pleasing. Like the Alexas, the Arri cameras. It looks good, and you would have to analyze it with an AI computer nowadays, and to figure out what the difference is. But it just looks right, and that's how I judge stuff.
Well, and the Blackmagic RAW is just fantastic, like so good to work with in the grade.
Yeah, and I mean, they have resolve. They know what they're doing. They know how to process even in that little camera body.
Yeah, that is the one thing. I do really enjoy the Blackmagic cameras. I just want that now that the 6K Pro is a giant football, I'm like, just turn it sideways. Just make it. I don't need it to be like this. Just like that. We're all good.
Yeah. But there's a lot inside, I guess. A lot of stuff there.
Well, now they put NDs in it, which is a godsend. That's one thing I will no longer purchase a camera that doesn't have built-in NDs.
I very much agree. Yeah.
All right. Red coming out with the Komodo X, and they're like still no NDs. And this has a 4-stop ND in it.
Really?
Yeah, and this is a filter. So you're telling me you can't fit an ND in something that's what, 3 inches long?
Yeah. Wow.
Come on, Red.
That's incredible. Yeah. And you have to have it at the pace that we're all going on the set, changing a glass filter, for exposure is not a good thing. So you must have built-in NDs. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Well, we'll pick this up next time you want to come by.
All right.
Get to dinner or something. But thank you so much for spending the time with me. It was a very, very lovely time talking to you.
Kenny, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay. Take care.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by ProVideo Coalition. As this is an independently funded podcast, we rely on support from listeners like you. So if you'd like to help, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/frameandrefpod. We really appreciate your support, and as always, thanks for listening.